Hey everyone, this is Randy from Committed to Completion, where I work with you to understand how you can lead and manage your way to your wins in your profession, in your personal life. This little segment here, I just want to talk to you about some quick tips, what I call the Trinity Tactics. This is kind of a little bit of a small series where every so often I'll give you kind of the 3 top tips for a particular issue or challenge that I've seen in managing projects. So for this first one, what I wanted to talk about is how to manage meetings with a large number of attendees, right? So I know a lot of you in the project management profession tend to do a lot of projects with large project teams. And even when you take a subset, a smaller group of those team members, and bring them, on a weekly basis, or even depending on your project, maybe even twice a week basis, you're meeting with them to go over status, manage action items, going over issues and topics. The effectiveness of those meetings is very important. If you think about my experience in the biotech industry, you bring together engineers, scientists, managers, directors. So if you think about, there's a lot of people who are being paid a lot of money, and to take an hour of their time in the end of the day adds up to a very costly price for these meetings. So from a company perspective, you want to make sure that you're using all these people's time effectively when you bring them together for a half hour, even hour and a half, depending on the type of meeting. So as a PM, I see it as a very important responsibility for making sure that the meetings we run are effective. Now, my experience is you have meetings on a 5 or less type of person basis. It's easy to kind of have an effective meeting because it's smaller. You're able to engage people. Everyone's able to speak, for example, kind of speak their mind, get their opinion on a topic. But when you get to these bigger meetings, 10, 15, and even 20, which becomes a really interesting meeting in my experiences, the question becomes, as a project manager, what are you doing to make sure that you are managing, again, these people's time effectively for these meetings? And then I know in some realms, people say, well, if you're having a meeting of more than 10 people, you should be having that meeting. And maybe rightfully so, right? I definitely, again, it kind of comes back to what is the effectiveness of having meetings with 10 or more people, 10 or 15 people. And, again, that's going to be on a case-to-case basis. You're going to have to decide when it makes sense to have a meeting that's 10 or more people and when it's not. But let's say you have to. Let's say that there's enough people that need to kind of be involved in this meeting because of the diversity of topics that are involved. So, tip 1, making sure you prepare your agenda ahead of time effectively. And what do I mean by effectively? In my experience, what I've done typically, if it's on a weekly kind of cadence of a meeting where I have 10 or more people, I'll have that meeting, let's say on a Wednesday. I wrap up those notes, get those notes out within 24 hours, so at least by the next day those notes are out, and already that next day I'm already thinking about and working to create the agenda for the next meeting. That's right. Ahead of time means like almost immediately on a weekly basis. You're basically within 5 days of the next instance of that meeting, you're already preparing. Because one thing you need to do is to make sure you understand, one, what are the major topics that I need to cover in that next meeting to keep the project going effectively. And so planning your agenda to making sure that it's aligning with those critical topics, those critical issues that need to be talked about, discussed, and the information of that then going out to the rest of those team members so they can talk to their people, for example, is going to be very important. You don't want to waste people's time by talking about topics that really don't need to be talked about in that particular meeting. If it's only pertaining to maybe one member in that meeting, well, have a side meeting with that one particular member. But if you're going over topics that pertain to 3, 4, 5 of your team members out of the 10, it's probably worth making sure that you get that topic in that meeting, especially again if it's something that relates back to your critical path or something that's critical for your timeline. So again, making sure that you prepare your agenda, understand what are the key topics you should be talking about, and then making sure those topics are prepared for. Some of those topics are going to be presented by key members of your team. So you want to make sure that you set them up for success and that they come ready with PowerPoint slides, data, charts, whatever it may be. You want to make sure that they are set up for success. So again, very key to make sure that very early on, almost immediately after you finish your meeting from the previous week, get already a plan together of what the next agenda is going to be. Get that in front of people, make sure they agree, get that posted on your meeting invite, and start to follow up with those meeting leads to make sure that they're getting ready. And even number 2, which is I think also a very important topic, is making sure that you sit down and review with the folks that are presenting in your meeting to make sure that they are prepared and that the topics or material they prepared is actually going to be effective in communicating the current status or situation, right? So let's take, for example, and this has happened on a number of occasions, but let's say you're developing a drug, right, or a test, if you will, anything within kind of that deals with reagents, chemicals, or compounds. When you deal with a lot of that type of material, you want to make sure that you understand the viability over time, or the robustness or stability. And so a lot of times we do studies where you take that material, you'll do what we call kind of corner cases, edge cases. You do testing on different levels to make sure what the variance of how that material can come or be made. You understand what those limits are, and you can effectively control the manufacturing and making of those reagents, those chemicals, so that whether it's made with anywhere made within those control limits, it will do and perform the same way in that drug or in that reagent that you're trying to make and formulate as a product, right? So again, for my folks in the technical world, that probably makes sense. For those who don't understand that, simply put, you just need to make sure that what you're making you can make consistently. And so there's a lot of studies and tests that go into doing that. So why use that as an example for what I'm talking about? Well, depending on your audience, there's a lot of detailed data that you can bring to a meeting. But is it really telling the story of okay, what's the issues, what's the status? Particularly if you have an hour meeting, you don't have time to come and bring 20 slides on the results of a study. You're going to have to find a way to make sure that you summarize concisely what that data is saying, and making sure that you are telling the story, if you will, effectively to the people in the audience, right? And again, that's going to be, crafted around also who is going to be attending this meeting. So again, as a project manager, managing this agenda, managing the content that's coming into the meeting, again, number 1, making sure your agenda is defined. What are you talking about? Is it are these topics effective? Number 2, those who are presenting, make sure you're meeting with them and understanding what they're presenting and making sure that is going to be effectively communicated to your audience. And the third and final point is making sure that you are, as a moderator of this meeting, right, as the material is being presented, ask questions, bring in folks, into the fold. And what I mean by that is, if one of your folks is presenting, and you have other team members that may benefit from understanding, those results, or may benefit down the road from what's being talked about, question them, ask them, hey, such and such, Bill over here in quality, what was your opinion or your thoughts about how well the results are showing the stability of this product? Especially if Bill, for some isn't as open to offering feedback in a meeting because of his personality, he doesn't necessarily want to speak up, he's maybe shy. Encourage them. Again, as a program manager and a leader hosting this meeting, you can get to dictate, how this meeting goes. You don't have to just sit there and wait for people to respond. You can definitely, if it's important to hear feedback from certain folks, it's okay to kind of ask them, hey, what do you think, Sarah? What do you think, Rachel? What do you think, Bill, about the results that we just shared? And I think they would appreciate that. I think some of the most effective meetings that I've been a part of, or I've tried to run, is, for me, asking questions about the data, and then also allowing people to speak up, encouraging other people to speak up about what they've seen. And if all they say is, "Oh no, I don't have any worries, I think what was shared is fine," great. That if anything, again, you got some engagement, you got some folks other than yourself and the presenter to talk. Again, this provides, again, time after time of having a meeting, you start to build and encourage people to participate, be comfortable speaking in meetings, and then getting a true collaboration, true kind of feedback from people in the meeting. Again, when you think about this idea that we're bringing together 10 to 15 people, these meetings can be very costly. And so we want to make sure people not only are, feeling that their time is well spent, but also that they feel that, they have an opportunity to be heard, that they feel that they have value that's being added. Again, that those types of aspects also go beyond the price tag, because I think as a company, we want our employees, want our team to feel that they have a voice, that they feel valued. So again, what are you doing as a PM? What are you doing as a manager of a project to make sure that your team is feeling that they are able to participate, that they're adding value in these meetings? So I hope this is helpful. Think about, again, these three points. Again, what are you doing to prepare your agendas for meetings? What are you doing to make sure that the people who are presenting are coming to bring material to the meeting that effectively communicates, the points that the audience cares about? And 3, what is it you're doing to make sure that people are feeling that they can engage in the discussion and adding value to these meetings? If you can hit those 3 points, your meetings will feel, not just by you, effective and well thought out and well, if you will, worth people's time. But the people who are attending those meetings will feel the same way, and they will appreciate and thank you for that, if you will. So again, thank you again for your time. If you like what you heard, subscribe to the channel. You'll hear more and more again, tips from me. Again, this is my Trinity Tactics series of giving, again, 3 tips that help you overcome some of the most common challenges that I've seen in project management. Thanks again. Have a great day.